outside, so you may wish to keep your masks on. Once we're out in the world and far away from the CCTV, which is inside of this building and in this car park, you may feel happier to reveal your faces. But until then, please keep your masks on for your safety and your security. And I'd like you to know that this performance may be being documented covertly and overtly. We're going to go for a walk. If you don't have a chair and you may want to sit down later, we may be able to pick some up and be guided to those when we walk through the building here. So if you get lost, just look for the Spire. I just thought I'd stop and try and remember the view. I've been here before. So that's all I'm doing, nothing too complicated. I just thought, just in case anybody was unsure, that the sound that's being broadcast is not white noise, but the sound of an underground river, which may or may not be under our feet. I thought we'd stop here because I think this is maybe one of the places where the river seems to come to the surface. I thought that might be of interest. But we're not at the journey's end yet. I've been thinking about cameras, about being looked at, about looking at things. And when I started to think about this, I thought about the fact that when I was younger, this was a very rare thing. That cameras watching you was a very rare thing. That even having a camera was a very rare thing. And that the overt and the covert is just the flip of a surface. That being seen and not being seen changes like that. And I started thinking about these that so many of us have in our pockets. And I've used lots of cameras which are over 100 years old, and they're almost the same as this in a lot of ways. They have a little round bit of glass on the front, and they have some kind of sensitive material in the back. And you look through it and you can collect pictures. But this also shows the pictures. So it goes from being private to being public very, very quickly. And that's partly what this is. This is the public movable screen, but of a place that's not public, of a private place, of a river that starts in the hills and runs underneath and through a city until it breaks out and kind of dissolves and mixes with all the other rivers in the centre of the city. And I've been thinking about the idea of the closed circuit TV, of this idea that there's this space. And I remember 30 years ago hearing about these things. There was a kind of conversation that they would be introduced. They would start to appear all over the place, and that they would be looking after us. And that this would be immediate. And that there should be a conversation about it. And then I heard nothing more about it. And then a couple of years later, they just seemed to be everywhere, looking at me. And I didn't know where they were going. I didn't feel like they were making me any safer. I didn't really know what they did. And over the years since, I've started to understand, or started to feel, that they don't do the things that we were told they would do, which is take over where we don't step in. So see and react. So these are some of the things I've been thinking about. I think when I'm walking and carrying the river with me, I'm not being rude, I just like not to talk too much when I'm walking. I'm just trying to think about the river. Which we can still hear. So.
I have a few questions for the Div before he turns back into Benedict Philips, possibly. You've actually touched on quite a few of the things that I was going to ask about, but I'm going to go through the questions anyway, and we can kind of review it, and then probably we maybe have some questions for the Div or Benedict Philips. Maybe. So, you've given us your thoughts on being surveyed and seen, but can you go into that a little bit more with your Div persona? What's the Div persona's take on being surveyed?
I think the Div's persona, the Div's perception, is one of self-observation. That scale inside of the Div's imagination shifts all the time. That the Div goes from looking into something to being outside of it, inside of it, larger than it, smaller than it. It moves around, it kind of tries to nail itself down but can't.
Okay. Do you have superpowers?
I don't really believe in superpowers. I believe there are human characteristics that can be exaggerated, and people interpret these as superpowers. They look at a sprinter who can run 100 meters in 10 seconds and they would say that's a superpower, but that's just a kind of a distilling down of a characteristic. They're more than just that. I imagine they can hold conversations as well as run very fast.
So, you're very visible as the Div, and is this a disguise? Is it a protection against surveillance?
It's a kind of appearance of a characteristic that lives inside of Benedict Philips. So inside of Benedict Philips there are lots of different people, and they all have different interests and experiences, and some of them are formed by things that cannot be seen. They're formed by characteristics that no one would see on the surface, but have impact. And so to kind of bring that out, to show that, to exhibit that, so that the invisible can be seen, the Div appears to be the Div.
Well, possibly one more question, but you've pretty much answered that anyway. So what do you think others may think about seeing you?
Ooh.
Maybe we'll find that out.
Oh. Others. Oh, that's tricky, isn't it? To step outside of yourself and look at a version of yourself that you've created. That's an interpretation of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And then think about how someone else might then see that. I
suppose what I'm getting at is, so the Div's a device to show something.
I think the Div, being a Div, allows you to be visible, allows you to talk about something, allows you to clearly decide that you're being seen. But it also means that when you take the hat off, you can become Benedict Philips again.
Thank you.
Thank you.